I'm Bob Trask. This is our weekly reset. Thanks for being with me. Today we're going to talk about the power of our imagination. And I think it's a pretty timely subject because we're surrounded in this world right now with some real crazy stuff going on. I don't care whether you're left or right or somewhere in the middle. Everything is just seems like it's upside down and backwards, and things seem like in a lot of ways they're out of control. And I want to talk a little bit about being out of control because I think we should be a little bit out of control. And that's why the power of your imagination is our talk today. Because you see, we can be safe by following our egos. And our egos are based on our memories, our opinions, our beliefs. And it says this is the way we've experienced everything, and this is what we decided how things will work. But that's all in the past. Has nothing to do with what might be in the future. So let's talk about our imagination. Let's talk about what could actually happen to our lives if we trusted our imagination. Let's just talk about that for a minute. See, imagination is sometimes thought of as daydreaming. And when you're a little kid, you're told, stop daydreaming, pay attention. Well, I wonder if there's a difference between daydreaming and fantasizing and imagination. And my thoughts, and I've thought a lot about that this week, I think daydreaming and imagination are pretty doggone close to connected to each other. Fantasizing is a little bit different. We use our imagination to fantasize, but we fantasize about stuff that sexual fulfillment or finding a suitcase filled with millions of dollars, or those are fantasies and they don't lead us anywhere. Imagination takes into account that you and I are individuals of 108 billion people that have so far been on this planet. There's only one you. There will never ever be another you. You're the only one. So when we think about that, and we think about the immensity of being solitary in the multiverse, in all of time and history, what does that mean? Does it carry with it some possibilities, being unique and individual? Because if you have an imagination and you use it and you say, I think I want to do this, I'm really called to do this, it inspires me. That's what imagination does. It inspires us. It not only gives us a picture, but it inspires us to move forward toward that picture. And it gives us the ability to do so. And so when I'm following my imagination, I'm actually using my individuality in this universe to make a statement. My individuality. There's a there's there's a there's a reality that's greater than you and me right now. And it's an idea. It's the GPS, the guidance system of our lives, of our very lives. All of our tomorrows are going to be the result of our imaginations. We can have tomorrow what we have today, exactly the same, exactly the same. And, like if I'm 50 years old or even 10 years old, if everything I get tomorrow is the same thing I have today, then I can just go all the way through life with it. I could just be in the same exact position and never have any changes. But what delight is in that? Do we dare imagine? Do we dare to imagine beyond anything? And if we follow our imaginations, we just don't follow just the structures of society or the structures of our knowledge of what we know. Is that wise? Albert Einstein, who we consider to be maybe one of the smartest men that ever lived, smartest people that ever lived, said the true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination. He said the power of imagination is the ultimate creative power and is more important than knowledge. Einstein said your imagination is the preview of your life's coming attractions. Boy, is that true. Boy, is that true. But most of us don't trust our imaginations. Because if I trust my imaginations, I'm going to have to make some changes. And change is always scary. Change is always scary. But here's the wonderful thing about change being scary is that fear is energy. That's why it's there. It's energy. And that when I get ready to make a change and I get scared, if I have my imagination and the picture of my imagination clearly before me, I take the risk. I stepped through that fear. And that fear impels me. It's the energy that gives me the ability to move beyond where I am now. We go where no one else has gone. No one else has ever lived on this planet that is you or is me. So we go where no one else has gone. We're living in a multiverse, which is divine consciousness. Can we get that? That there's nothing anywhere that's not consciousness. It's alive. Consciousness is alive and it's moving around us and it's calling out to us. It's unfolding and transforming even now as I speak. The vastness of this unfolding blessing, this unfolding consciousness, this unfolding multiverse is only limited by our willingness to trust it, to trust our imagination. So I know you've got a dream that you haven't fulfilled. I know that. There's a dream that you haven't yet fulfilled. I know that. Maybe there's a bunch of them. But it's not been safe to do that. It's not been safe to follow those dreams because someone might not like it, or someone might think you're being foolish, or someone might think, oh, I don't understand what you're doing. Explain it to me. And you can't explain it to them. And because you're going to have to move outside of your current thinking process, that little box that we all live in that is our thinking process, I'm going to have to move outside of that into a much broader, wider way of perceiving reality. And then I'm going to create something. I'm going to create a new life. And I'm going to continue to create a new life. And every day that goes by, it's going to get bigger and bigger and more colorful and more exciting. More music playing, more dancing in it. And I'm going to be an inventor of a new reality. Every invention we now take for granted, every invention, every one of them, the clock, the stove, the car, everything was once thought impossible. Impossible. We lived in a world where those didn't exist. But someone dared to imagine it. And they were unique and they were individual and they were called to that imagination. They were called to that development. And they were dismissed as daydreamers. Here's a few of those daydreamers. Thomas Edison. He imagined light bulbs. That's just ridiculous. You're going to have this little glass ball and it's going to be a light shining inside of it, and it's going to just shine all night long, and it's going to have an electric. What are you talking about? But he imagined light bulbs and he created them. Alexander Graham Bell imagined telephones and he created them. John Baird imagined television and he created it. Steve Jobs imagined cell phones and he created them. Cell phones. This little guy right here. No wires attached, nothing. I can pick this up and I can call a friend of mine in the other side of the world and talk to them on this. That's not possible. That's not possible. But Steve Jobs imagined that and he created it. Louis Pasteur was an average student, just like you and me, with average grades. He was just average, but he had a vast imagination, and he followed his imagination. And he developed vaccinations for anthrax, for cholera, for tuberculosis, for smallpox. He saved hundreds of millions of lives. Over time, his offering to the human race is astounding. And I could go on and list thousands of inventors. I could talk about Beethoven, who was writing great orchestrations when he was deaf, when he couldn't hear. He was still writing great music. I could talk about Helen Keller, who's become one of the leading minds of all time, and she was deaf and blind, and she had an imagination, and she dared follow it. The only difference between you and I and those people is that they dared to follow their imagination. They trusted the image that was not coming from their thinking, and they knew it wasn't coming from their thinking. It was coming from somewhere beyond. Beyond where? From that great consciousness that is the universe in which we all belong. And so our imagination, and it's not only for inventing things. When we trust it, it guides us to victory through the most complicated of our life situations. And one of the greatest mistakes that we as parents and teachers do is we stifle the imagination in kids. That we make them paint inside the lines. We said, this is the way this is done. I know a woman who is a fantastic artist, and she's only now starting to open her heart to becoming an artist again. But when she was young, she was a great artist and she was doing some amazing artwork. And then one day, the art teacher came and looked over her shoulder and reached out and took the brush out of her hand and corrected some things. She never painted again. This kid never painted again. Until recently, she started trusting her imagination again. When kids learn to trust that magic inside of them, listen to this. They automatically increase their cognitive, creative, and social skills. And history shows that they develop multifaceted lives of enjoyment and of achievement. You know what? When I was a young boy, I I lived in a housing project. I lived in several housing projects, but at this one point, we were really dirt poor, and life was a scrabble. But I had this imagination, and I dreamed of things that could be. And once in a while, I would run away from home for the day and go down to the bay. Boy, did I catch it when I got back home. Oh, let me tell you about it. But I'd go down to the bay and I'd sit on the dock and I'd look at the fishing boats. I'd look at their hulls and the colors of their hulls, and I'd imagine them plowing through the seas. And I'd look up, boy, especially, I'd look up at the pilot house, the wheelhouse, standing high above the deck. And I look at the windows up there, and I'd imagine being a sea captain inside of that pilot house, going out across the vast ocean. Oh, God, what a thrill that was. What a thrill. I was pretty sure it'd never happen for me. But my imagination was there. And you know what? That picture never went out. I continued to imagine that. Just like you're continuing to imagining something right now. And one day I had all my captain's papers and I was up in that wheelhouse out on the open ocean. And when I was Also, a kid, I dreamed of being a professional singer. Then one day I became one. And I dreamed of guiding groups of people through vast wildernesses in Alaska, up in the Arctic Circle, and through the forests and the jungles of South America. And then I became that guide. I dreamed of fighting forest fires and of rescuing people. And I did that. And I wrote a rescue manual that's saved lots and lots of lives. And those all became parts of my life. And I learned again and again and again that if I want something, I have to first imagine it and then never allow that picture to fade. And don't become intimidated by the fact that it's impossible. I know it's impossible. Let's go into it knowing it's impossible. And then set that aside. Because in this divine consciousness that is the multiverse, in this divine consciousness, there is nothing that's not available. There's nothing. Everything that you can imagine will create if you can hold the imagination together long enough and be fervent in your determination to accomplish it. The divine consciousness is on your side. The universe will help you produce the result you want. You and I are miracles. Every single part of us, our bodies, our minds, our brains, our imaginations, they're singularly our own. No one else owns any part of that which is you or me. Your imagination and mine are singular spiritual awakenings. And we allow ourselves to imagine, when we allow that magic to waken up inside of us, we become nourished by divine consciousness and guided to that unique and individual vision we have. And when I lose the clarity of my imagination, well, it's easy to make mistakes then. Boy, I've made some dandies. And that's because I was no longer, I mean, you might think of it about like a train on the track. And you can think of the track as being the spiritual, um, the spiritual path of my imagination. That's being guided by the universe, by the intelligence of the universe. And when I'm on that track, when I'm on that train track, boy, good things are happening. And when I get off of that track, then there's no guarantees. Everything is just a jumble. And then I make some crazy mistakes. And if I'd been trusting my imagination and listening to the guidance system in my imagination, most of my challenges might not even exist. So can we be kids again? Can we? Can we dare to dream and then dare to follow those dreams? We have everything to gain and absolutely nothing to lose. We can't fail because our imagination is an echo of eternity in its perfection. Your imagination is never flawed, it's flawless. The power of creation is in you at this moment because you're part of the divine wisdom of the universe. You are pure consciousness that lives inside of you with a big smile on its face, right here, right now. If you can do it, you can dream it. If you can dream it, you can do it. If you can dream it, you can do it. If you can do it, then dream it. You know, Ken Robinson said we often see athletes achieving unbelievable results. And we do, we see it all the time in runners and jumpers and swimmers. How can they do that? One of the tools they use is visualization, Ken Robinson says. Visualization or mental imagery, imagination. They make the choice to create their destinies. They make the choice to create their destinies and visualize their achievements. That's imagination. Cal Raleigh's a Seattle baseball player. Cal Raleigh You'll you'll remember because you'll hear that go down in history. Right now he's just a player, but he's going to be in history. He's outstanding at every level of the game. So far this year, he's broken several records and he's tied with Babe Ruth for home runs in a single season. There's no way now that Cal Raleigh goes up to the plate, bat in hand, looks out at the pitcher and just kind of shakes his head and says, well, let's just see what happens. He could never have become who he is and done what he did. As Ken Robinson said, he visualizes his success. And more than anyone else in baseball, he succeeds. And you're no different than Cal Raleigh. And you may not be a baseball player, but there's something that you do. There's a field that you're in that's your field, and it's awakened inside of you possibilities that you maybe haven't dared to reach for. And I'm asking you today to dare to reach for them. Because, like Louis Pasteur, who saved millions and millions of lives, whatever you're about to do is going to change the world for the better, change my world for the better. I want to change your world for the better. That's why I'm doing these resets. That's why I'm imagining beyond myself. What can I be? What can I do? What can I have such that I might be able to make a difference in your life? And I want you to make a difference in my life and in the other lives of everyone around you by following your imagination and trusting that it is spiritual, it's holy, it's sacred. It's the calling of your soul. It's where you're supposed to be. It's what you're supposed to be doing. It's what you're supposed to have. Trust. Rhonda Byrne reminds us that we're all born with extraordinary powers of imagination. When we worry about something, we're using our immense power of imagination negatively. So just think for a moment about your worries, because that's using the power of your imagination negatively. You're picturing something that you don't want. Rhonda said, imagining the worst, we bring it to us. And she also said that when we're excited about something, when we're using the power of our imagination positively, then we're imagining the best. And as we imagine the best, we bring it to us. So the ball is in my court. The ball is in your court. What will we do with it? Trust yourself. You're so special. You are so precious and so divine. You're not here by accident. You came here on a mission. Trust the mission. Trust the force within you and go forward now with love and with power, with imagination. I'm Bob Trask. This has been our weekly reset. Thank you for being with me. Please come back again and bring friends to these YouTube weekly resets. And if you will, stop by bobtrask.com, bobtrask.com, and leave a donation so that I continue this work and even expand it. Thank you. Thank you. Go with my love.